In this video I'm going to cover MIDI and how you can use it. So first off, we're going to choose a new software instrument where we can write MIDI information for our software instruments to read. The standard one is the classic electric piano, and to write MIDI information you right click, create a MIDI region, and in this box here you can now write MIDI information. Let's double click on that where we can open up the editor. We can then use the brush tool to draw some notes, or we could use the pencil tool. Where we could draw some notes as well. If you want to edit the length of notes, you can grab the end, or you can do this to multiple notes. If you want to change the pitch, that's as simple as grabbing the note and changing it to whichever pitch you want. You can do that to everything as well. Select multiples and then drag them all up and down. Another thing we can do with these notes is changing the velocities of them. A low velocity note means it will be played quietly, whereas a high velocity note will be that note played loudly. Another way of putting MIDI information in is to record it yourself. So instead of using the editor, we can record our track and then either with a MIDI instrument play it in. All we have to do is hit record. This counting will give us 4 beats. I'm going to put the metronome on and I'm just going to play some chords. Now that we've recorded the information in, we can go in and edit it. I'm going to leave that for a moment. Much like audio, MIDI can be stretched and resized. If I want my MIDI region to be 2 bars instead of 1 bar, I could just extend it. So now we have 2 bars worth of information here that I can now go in the editor and work on. Alternatively, I can use Alt or Option drag, and now all the notes will be doubled in size, and this 1 bar phrase will now last 2 bars. Scissors can be used to chop up notes. The finger tool can be used to resize the length of a note. The velocity tool can be used to increase the velocity of a note or multiple notes. Let's go and edit this chord sequence from before. So we can see that I was quite sloppy with my playing. I rarely hit the beat and I missed out on 2 notes here. Let's go fix that. First off, let's fix the timing. And there's a couple of ways you could do that. The most basic way is to select your notes and then drag them using the snap. If you snap to absolute values, it means it will line up to the grid. But this is really time consuming. Another method of doing this is to use the quantize, which is this cue over here. What that will do is it will line up our notes to the nearest 16th note. So a bar is divided in 16 notes. If I quantize these notes here, they snap to the closest one. What we can use is the strength of the quantize. So if I have it at 0, it will play where it was originally. Whereas as I slide this to 100, it will snap exactly to that value. Over here, you can tell that I'm not on the beat. So I'm going to hit quantize and then I missed 2 notes out. So to fix that, I could just copy these 2 notes across. And that's fixed. I can also quantize this part here, and there we are. Now it's in time with the metronome. The nice thing about MIDI is that, unlike audio, we can go back and change elements of that. So my first chord is, if I select the notes here, I will see that it was an A minor. And my next chord is an E major. Let's say I want to have an A major instead of an A minor. Well, I can select the minor note, which is a C, and sharpen it. And now I have an A major. And then I have to also raise that note there. I can also change the length of these notes so they are more consistent with the lower notes. Now let's look at choosing different software instruments. Just because I've written this on an electric piano doesn't mean I have to keep it as an electric piano. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open the library. Shortcut for that is Y, where I can find every instrument I'd like. So I can find a nice preset instrument that will suit this. So I'm going to look for an organ, jazz organ. So that's how you can find preset instruments. Now to edit them, you can open up the inspector, where you will see below MIDI effects region this blue box here. That's where your software instrument lives. And we can open it up where we can find lots of factory default settings. We can also interact with the instrument and change our settings. We can change the speed of the rotor cabinet and lots of different things. And this is available for pretty much every software instrument. Let's pick a completely different thing now. Let's pick keyboard, harpsichord. As you can see, it's changed this little blue box. It's now called sampler, but it gives us the opportunity to edit the sound. So we could change a filter or apply a filter to it. On a MIDI keyboard, you will find a pitch bend and a modulation wheel. You'll also find a sustain pedal or an octave select. All of these things are really important to making your instrument sound more realistic. The pitch bend does exactly what it says, whereas the modulation will bring about some subtle change to the instrument. Let's pick a soundscape one. And now let's have a look at the modulation. The octave select allows you to pick which octave of the instrument you're playing on. For example, the sustain, when engaged, will hold the note for you so you can let go and move on to the next notes. For example, if I don't have the sustain on, the note just dies the moment I let go of it. With the sustain, it will now sustain the note until I let go of the sustain pedal. All of this information can be recorded onto the MIDI region the very first time you record this. For example, or you can record it after the fact by moving the playhead all the way back to here, pressing record, and there in our MIDI region we can see multiple elements are there, and then we can go and edit these however we want. The other way of putting this information in is with the automation. If I double click and open up the editor, click A to open up the automation, I can now select multiple areas that I can draw in. So I can pick, for example, the sustain pedal, where I can see where I engage the sustain pedal. This is the sustain pedal on, and this is the sustain pedal off. Came on just after that note turned off, so I need to move it back a little bit. Other things worth looking at would be expression, modulation. The grid lines automatically come set as standard as 16ths whenever you open up a Logic project, but if you want to record in anything other than 16ths, for example 16th note triplets, then you can go to custom view at the top and select 24th, and now the grid will show you 16th note triplets. Changing the tempo of a project is really simple. There's two ways to do this. The first way, right at the top in the display, let me just return the display back to normal, is up here. That's one way of doing it. You can just click, double click, change the tempo to whatever you like. Another way of doing it is by opening the global control, G, where we can draw in tempo automation. which is more sophisticated. For example, we can go from 120 to 158 by using these notes, and we'll hear the metronome speed up. We can also create a ramp by grabbing this node here and choosing what kind of curve we want our tempo to follow. If you'd like to change the time signature, again, there's two ways of doing this. One way is to just select it in the display, and this will apply it to our whole project. The other way is, again, in the global, selecting signature here, placing the playhead where you want the time signature to change, press add, and then write in what time signature you would like. From that moment on, we'll be in 3/8. While we're at global, it's worth knowing that markers can also be added here, which is a really nice way for you to keep track of where you are in the project. For example, move the playhead to the beginning, add a marker, call it introduction. You can also Option C and color that introduction in a new color, add another marker where you need it, verse, color that one, and then when you get rid of the global menu, you'll see that the ruler now has those markers inside it. Now I'd like to show you how to use the swing quantize. So swing is where the weaker beats are pushed forwards in time. You'll hear this in swing jazz music. And to demonstrate this, I'm just going to duplicate this. So our chords are playing eighth notes. And at the moment there is no swing, so it's quite straight. The swing slider is here, but you'll notice that nothing changes when I slide it. And the reason for this is that we want to activate a different type of quantize, eighth note swing. You'll now notice that every other note will move forward. Not only can you quantize timing, but you can also quantize pitch with this area here of the editor. What I can do is I could select all my notes, and then I can say I want all of the notes to be quantized to the notes of C major. Watch what happens to any note that is playing a black note. See that note there? It jumped up because it's no longer allowed to be a black note. See that there's some timing issues here, which we can easily fix. Did you hear how only one note in this chord played? Despite there being two. Let's look at why that is. I zoomed in and I saw that this note here actually plays just before the location of the playhead. As MIDI information is MIDI on and MIDI off, the computer wasn't able to recognize that that note was played. So it's very important that your notes start at the right time. What we need to do here is we need to check that the sustain pedal is operating at the right time. You can see the sustain pedal is on, then it needs to come on here and turn off. Here we go. A nice and easy way for you to separate your MIDI parts so that multiple instruments can play them is to copy your MIDI region below. You can then remove all the notes you don't want that new instrument to play and change the instrument for it. So in this example, I'm going to ask a choir to sing those notes. And there it's brought in the sustain pedal as well. So let's go and edit this. MIDI effects are like audio effects, but they process the MIDI notes. And they're found in the MIDI effects section above the software instrument. There's some that I'm going to demonstrate here. My favorite one is the arpeggiator, where if I play a chord, it will just arpeggiate it for me. I can increase the octave range. You can engage more than one of these. Another one worth checking out is one called chord trigger, where you play one note and it will play the whole chord for you. You can choose which kind of chords you want. Just major chords. You can also combine these together with a chord trigger and an arpeggiator. So all you have to do is play one note. Another one worth looking at is called note repeater. Does exactly what you think it's going to do. As a MIDI region needs to be read by a software instrument before it's turned into audio, you might sometimes find that it glitches out or it doesn't play exactly how you want it to. Once you're happy with your MIDI instrument, you can just bounce it in place. What that will do is it will turn it into an audio file. There, we now have the audio version of the MIDI, so the computer doesn't have to constantly try and send the information to the software instrument to then turn into audio. It's audio. It's been turned into audio, and now you can do all of the audio processing effects. For example, in the inspector at the top, you can reverse your MIDI information. You can also apply fades, which is a problem with MIDI regions. You can't apply fades to MIDI regions, but you can apply it to the audio region. Fade, and then you can even use the alternate type of fades, such as the slow down and speed up. One last thing I'm going to show you is the Q flam. This is a way of notes of a chord not to be played at the exact same time. So let me just show you what I mean. In this MIDI region here, every single note in each chord plays at the exact same time. They all play at the exact same time. But with the Q flam, I can get them to play slightly after each other, or slightly before. Let me show you what I mean. You have to engage the quantize and tell it what kind of notes you're playing. So this would be 16th note. And then at the bottom here, you have the Q flam, where as we drag this up, you can see that the top notes starts to shift forwards in time. Positive means the higher notes will move forward, whereas negative means the lower notes will move forward. That's a quick recap into everything that we covered on the course regarding MIDI. I hope it helps.